Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Simon Beardsley from Lincolnshire Chamber of Commerce, and a very warm welcome to you on what is this, our ChamberConnect webinar. I'm going to be your host this afternoon, and we'll be focusing on the Small Business Grant Fund and also the Retail, Hospitality and Leisure Fund. So thanks for joining us and connecting with us virtually today. Our ChamberConnect series of webinars replaces our normal face-to-face sessions, but we still feel it's really important at this time to make sure that we connect and inform the business community. At this stage, can I just make you aware that we are recording today's webinar for two reasons. One, that you can go back and replay any bits that you might have missed. But also, if people aren't able to log in at this time, there's a resource available via our website to go back to and look at the information that's on there as well. So, 2 weeks into lockdown, there are new ways of working. Remote working is slowly becoming a norm for some of us. But as a chamber, we've been continuing to support both you, your staff and your businesses to keep up to date and also to share the latest information. We've been working hard with British Chambers of Commerce as we seek to get further clarity on business support schemes. And we also continue to represent business voice, whether it be locally or nationally. We are currently gathering information on how businesses are finding their experience of getting access to government support. So please share with us both positive and negative experiences and how to do so. If you email us at marketing@links-chamber.co.uk, marketing@links-chamber.co.uk, we'll pick up those themes when we get there. Now, from the information that we've received so far, I thought it might be just worth capturing some of the feedback that we've got. And the first bit, it really won't be something that will shock many of us in terms of the feedback that we are getting, that we're seeing sharp and significant falls in domestic and overseas revenues from UK businesses. Almost half of our respondents to surveys, 44%, expect to furlough at least 50% of their workforce in the next week, and 18% of businesses have closed their operations altogether. 2/3 of respondents are now using remote working, and half are using video conferencing. What we've also been doing is making sure that we're providing as much information as possible to the business community, and I would suggest, if you haven't been there already, visiting our website. Our COVID-19 hub is there for hints, tips and answers. www.links-chamber.co.uk is the place to go, and there's a link on the homepage to get you to that information. We're also connecting with as many businesses as possible via LinkedIn. So if you're not connected, make sure that you've got that strand and you're kept informed. And we're also sharing #Stronger messages with the wider community about working together and sharing experiences as well. And during these changing times, we're also introducing a #LinkedConnect hour, which is our first Twitter networking hour. The first one of those will take place on Wednesday, the 15th of April, between 11 and 12 noon. Use the hashtag to connect with us, fellow Lincolnshire businesses, share news stories, best practices, and even share your own home working space as well. We'll continue these initiatives every Wednesday and Friday at 11 AM. Now, feedback from members has also led us towards the introduction of this series of webinars called ChamberConnect. And today, I'll shortly be delighted to welcome to you a number of colleagues from local authorities who are here to support with help, advice and guidance on this particular subject. I will introduce you shortly to Claire Moses, and Claire is the Revenues and Benefits Shared Services Manager for the City of Lincoln and North Kesteven District Council. Lydia Rustling, Head of Economic Development and Growth at East Lindsey District Council. Joe Walker, Assistant Director of Growth at the City of Lincoln Council. Andy Hall, Business Rates Assurance Manager at Boston Borough Council. And Clive Gibbon, Economic Development Manager at Boston Borough Council. And this is very much meant to be an interactive session. We want you to have the chance to put your issues, opinions, views to the experts as well. I'll just explain how we're going to do that, but these sessions do work best where our participants on the call get actively involved and ask the questions of the experts and get that two-way feedback. So very shortly, I'm going to pass you over to the experts, Andy and to Claire. They'll give an overview of the Small Business Grant Fund and also the Hospitality Leisure Grant Fund as well. There'll be a chance for the local authority reps also to give an overview of what's happening in their area before we finally come to questions and answers. Now, I've got some questions and answers that were sent in already to us. Happy to go through those. Without further ado, that is enough from me. We expect the session to last between 45 minutes and an hour, but to kick us off, I'd first like to go to Andy Hall, if possible. Andy, just to give us an overview, and then pass on to Claire if that's appropriate.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Simon. I'm Andy from Boston Borough Council. I'll just do a very quick overview of the scheme. In response to the coronavirus, the government have announced that there will be support for small businesses and also for businesses in the retail, hospitality and leisure sectors. Not necessarily small businesses in the retail, hospitality and leisure sectors, but certainly businesses. There are two forms of support available for those. It's going to be in the form of 2 grants. And it will only be for the current financial year 2021. So we have the Small Business Grant Fund. That's aimed at any business that is currently getting small business rate relief. And then for the Retail, Hospitality and Leisure Grant, that's split into 2. I should say that the grant for small businesses is a £10,000 one-off payment. So provided you're getting small business rate relief on your annual rates bill, and you were getting that at the 11th of March, the qualifying date, you'll be eligible for the £10,000 grant. But for retail, hospitality and leisure, it would be either a £10,000 grant or a £25,000 grant. And that will be according to your rateable value, not the amount of your rates, but the actual rateable value on which your rates bill is based. So below 15,000 rateable value, you'll qualify for a £10,000 grant. And between 15,000 and 51,000 rateable value, you'll qualify for the £25,000 grant. We should say that for the retail, hospitality and leisure grant, you should be wholly or mainly engaged in those sectors. So if you have a small retail element to your business, it's not your whole or main element, then you we will be inviting applications, and we do have an online form, and I'm sure that's the same for many councils across the country. We know we do need certain information to be confirmed, but providing you meet those qualifying criteria, then you will be eligible for the grant. You do not have to demonstrate that you're in any way affected by the coronavirus outbreak. You merely need to meet the qualifying conditions. And in the event that you're in both categories of small business, getting small business rate relief, and in the retail, hospitality and leisure sector, you will only qualify for the 1 grant. So it is possible to be in both sectors, and that would be the £10,000 grant. But if you have a number of premises in the retail sector, then you can have 1 grant for each of the premises that you have that meets the qualifying criteria. So for small businesses, essentially, they only have 1 rates bill, because by definition, to get small business rates relief, you only have 1 premises in the country. But for retail, hospitality and leisure, you could have a chain of retail stores across the country, each of them below 51,000 rateable value. And so for each of those premises, you can apply for the grant.
I wonder if colleagues from the growth teams would like to say anything at this stage in terms of maybe other things that you're doing in your specific area to support at this time.
I think, Simon, it's Clive Gibbon here from Boston Borough Council. I would obviously encourage businesses to look at all of our websites across Lincolnshire, because there's a vast amount of information there that you can access, and also through Business Lincolnshire's website as well. But I think for us also is we've got half an eye on the recovery element, to look at how we work with the business community going forward. So we've added some questions on the bottom of our form, which we would welcome businesses to within our borough to actually complete, so we can actually guide and use that to guide our strategy going forward. So So I appreciate that it's a lot about the here and now, but we've also got to be mindful of, as and when we do come out of this, we are in a better place to support businesses going forward.
Clive, Joe or Lydia, is there anything you want to input at this stage?
Hello, it's Jo Walker here from City of Lincoln. Hopefully you can hear me. Sorry, I'm not able to join you by video just yet. Some connectivity problems there. But yeah, just to say that we are supporting colleagues in our rates department to make sure that we reach out to those businesses who are eligible for this grant, so that we contact them directly if at all possible and direct them to the assistance on our website. And we have lots of information on our website. We guide businesses to further support Business Lincolnshire, and also to the government's webpage, which has the full list of options available to businesses, in addition to the grants that we're administering.
I think I echo, obviously, what Clive and Joe have said. And for context, I work for East Lindsey District Council. We have contacted over 4,700 businesses within the district that are eligible for either the Small Business Grant Fund or the Retail, Hospitality and Leisure one. Just a point that may be applicable to some of you that are listening is that the Small Business Grant Fund is also eligible for those of you that receive the rural rate relief or the small business rate relief. And we are also, obviously, like our colleagues, sharing as much as information as we can on the website. We also have a dedicated email, which is businessgrants@e-lindsey.gov.uk, if you have any specific queries relating to the business grants. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Lydia. Maybe just on to a couple of questions, if I could. I see we've got something in the chat, but also don't forget to raise a hand and we can come to you as well if it sparks off a further question from you. Some quick fire ones, possibly to Andy for a start, if you'd help me out with these. How long is it expected that both schemes will last for? Is there a time frame where people have got to get applications in? Is it a ticking clock in terms of how quickly people have got to apply? I think Andy is saying that no, there's not a time frame issue at the present stage. Andy, sorry, I think we just got cut off there slightly. Do you mind just repeating again? How long will the scheme last? Fellow supporters from local authorities, can anybody else help me in terms of how long the scheme will last?
I can just come in, Jo Walker from City of Lincoln. There is no deadline, as we know it, for applications to this scheme as it stands. Obviously, we want to be able to help businesses as quickly as possible. So all of those businesses that have heard from us and haven't yet applied, certainly in Lincoln, I'm sure this applies across the board, please do come forward and apply via the online form. If you have any issues with that, then you can get in touch with us. There are email addresses on our website, as I'm sure there are for other colleagues, but no deadline has been set as yet.
Okay, so in terms of how to apply, is it as simple as that for each local authority? Joe, I think you've just said there's a form or a link to click on your website. Andy, can you hear me in Boston? Is it as simple to apply in Boston? Clive, you may be able to help out if I can't.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, we've got the form on our website, if you're hearing me now.
We are.
Yeah, and we're wanting the businesses to complete that as the priority, more so than the paper form that we've already sent them. It would speed up their payments. But, you know, if they're not in a position to get on the website, then the paper form is fine. And we will be aiming to get those payments out by the end of April.
Same question, Lydia. Is it as easy to apply in East Lindsey as it is in the other 2 or 3 areas?
Yes, we have 3 options. We are pushing as many through to our website as possible. There is a link quite clearly on our homepage and on the business pages relating to coronavirus. We also can issue a PDF form that you can edit and return to us by email if you'd prefer to do that, and we can also post you a copy if required.
When the applications go in, how quickly are they likely to be paid? There's a couple of questions in terms that information has been put in, but how quickly does it take to process? Obviously, you've got a lot coming in at this time. Can you set expectations in terms of how quickly you can get the grants out of the door?
Yeah, I mean, we're expecting to get our payments out by the end of April, and certainly within 2 weeks of any application being received.
Can I just ask the same question? How quickly in Lincoln are things being processed, or North Kesteven and East Lindsey again? Joe, can I just ask you that question?
Yeah, so similar to Andy, we would hope to turn these around within 2 weeks. It does depend on the information coming in. So if there are any queries with the information, for example, if the details don't quite match, and we have queries to go back to the applicant, then that obviously slows things up. We are trying to turn as many around as possible within a short time frame as we can, and we have already paid out just under 1,000 grants to date. There will be over the 1,000 mark today. So we've managed to get through those applications that are easy to process, if you like, where the information matches up with our system and where there's no question around bank details. But where there are issues, unfortunately, that slows things down. But we are responding to all inquiries along the way. So hopefully all of those applicants that are currently in our system will know where they stand, where the status is, and what information we're still awaiting, or whether indeed they are eligible to receive the grant, because that is the other question that we have to sort of ask and verify before releasing payment. And then once the application has been verified and released for payment, and we do a payment run each day, so any application that we manage to process and verify during that day will then be released. It will then be paid by BACS and should arrive into the business bank account within 3 working days.
Okay, that's great. And is that the same in East Lindsey as well? Oh, no comment from East Lindsey. We'll come back to that one. Question now, are all small businesses with rateable value under £15,000 will get small business grants of £10,000? Therefore, who qualifies for £10,000 retail grant but doesn't qualify for small business grant? Kevin, are you there? Kevin, can we just put you on screen just to ask that question? So Kevin, I'm going to unmute you. Are you able to ask the question directly? Hi, Kevin.
Hi. Just a question.
Directly to them.
There's 2 grants. There's a small business grant and there's a retail and hospitality grant.
Yes.
All the small businesses will be eligible with the rate. The grants under 15,000 will get a £10,000 grant. So who's got to qualify for the retail and hospitality grant of £10,000 that's not already qualified under the small business grant? Because to me it seems there's a grant fund there that nobody can qualify for.
Yeah, I can take that, Simon, if you want me to.
Thank you.
I think I understand the question. For the people that are eligible for the small business grant, they will only get 1 grant for that company. And the people that get that will be the people getting small business rate relief or rural rate relief. So there are very strict qualifying conditions to get that grant. For the £10,000 retail, hospitality and leisure grant, that will be the remaining businesses in that sector that aren't on small business rate relief. So they may have 2 or 3 shops across Lincolnshire. Each of those shops might be below 15,000 rateable value. They're retail shops. They can't get small business rate relief because they've got more than 1 business premises in the country. But for each of those premises, they'll get the retail, hospitality and leisure grant of £10,000 per business. Or indeed, if their rateable values of those shops were up to 51,000, if they're between 15,000 and 51,000, they'll get the £25,000 grant. But they wouldn't have been eligible for the small business grant because they don't get small business rate relief. Does that help?
Yes, understand.
Okay, thanks, Kevin.
That's lovely. Thanks for coming on, Kevin. Now, I've got a further question. I'll just go back to Lydia if I could. We were asking the question in terms of how quickly grant payments are being processed by different authorities. We've got a feel from Lincoln, we've got a feel from Boston. What's the speed that you can process in East Lindsey at the present time?
Thank you, Simon. I'll pick up also on Taylor's hair studio at the same time. My apologies, there was a delivery driver at the door. That's why I had to disappear. So yes, we have started making grant payments. The first batch of payments went out on Friday. I think the confusion on the query that has said 5 to 10 days is from today. So if the business phoned up our customer contact team on that day, they would have said, if we receive the form and we have no queries with your eligibility and your bank details are correct, then we will endeavour to make payments within 5 to 10 days. But bearing in mind, we do actually have a backlog. So we received the grant funding through from government on the 1st of April, as my colleagues did. We have a significant number of businesses to try and get out the door. We have ensured that we have we've employed more members of the team across the authority to work on this. And where all the information and the businesses are eligible, they're going through in batches of several hundred at a time. So I know over the past, since Friday, we've had 3 batches, Friday, Monday and Tuesday, which are totalling over £8 million worth of funding out to businesses. So I hope that clears up Taylor's Hair Studio query. And I will pick that up also with our customer contact team so they are clear on our process. Thank you.
Are businesses who are virtual tenants and a limited company eligible to receive the grants that are out there at the present time?
They need to be the ratepayer. If they're the ratepayer and they're getting the rate bill and they meet the qualifying conditions, then yes, they'll get the grant. But if they're not the ratepayer, even if they're occupying premises that are rated, then they will not get the grant.
Okay, thank you. And if I've received state aid previously, will I still be eligible to receive one of the available grants? Is state aid a precluder in terms of being eligible?
Yes, there are state aid limits. They do vary from one grant to the other. And I think the limits are €200,000 and €800,000 respectively. And I would say that providing they're well below those limits, there won't be a problem.
Okay. My office is split into, my office is a split property and the landlord pays business rates. Are there any grants available for my business? I think you've just articulated that it's the person who pays the...
Absolutely, yeah. It's the landlord might be eligible, but the tenant wouldn't in that situation. It's the ratepayer that is eligible for the grants.
Okay, it's a similar but connected question. I suppose we're just chipping off some of the eligibility. But are grants available for home-based businesses? So if you operate from home, you pay standard rates, not necessarily business rates. Are the grants available for businesses who operate from home?
Yeah, the answer to that is that if the part of the home is exclusively used for business purposes and is rated separately for business rates, then there will be the opportunity to get the grant on that element. But if it's just run from home and isn't separately rated and the premises are included within the council tax, then no, those grants are not applicable in that situation. These grants are for ratepayers only. Okay.
For businesses who have received the £10,000 grant, are there any restrictions on what that money can be used for? And will there be a payback plan once we get through the current situation? So are these one-off grants? Is there an expectation to pay back? And I've got a third question once you've answered that one.
Yeah, no, they are one-off grants. There is no restriction on how you use the money. I think I said in the introduction, you don't even have to have been affected adversely by the coronavirus to be eligible for the grant. So it's entirely up to the business what they do. What I will say is, in response to that earlier question asking about the tenant whose landlord was the ratepayer, the government have said that if the landlord qualifies for the grant, they would hope that the landlord would see that that money made its way to where it was intended. So it might be that a tenant could talk to the landlord about the fact that the landlord is the ratepayer and is eligible for the grant to see if there could be some agreement reached between them. There's no obligation for the landlord to pass that on, but the government have said that in their responses to their frequently asked questions.
Okay. There's a couple of similar questions here in terms of properties. You own properties in different parts of the county. They may be covered under different local authorities. So one is particularly about retail sites, and I think you've covered this, but we'll just ask the question to be clear again. So can you apply for a number of retail sites per council, or will the application be one per shop? Also, if you've got a number of properties, different sort of properties, I'm presuming these aren't necessarily all retail, but if you've got a number of properties in different parts of the county, will you be able to access 2 lots of funding?
Yes, it's per property, the retail, hospitality and leisure grant. So if each of the properties meet qualifying criteria and have the right rateable values, then you can apply for 1 grant.
Okay, that's great. Other questions? Renting a space in a business unit, could I possibly, and it looks like it's a number of businesses operating in the same unit, but the rates are included as part of that service fee or all inclusive. Is this the same answer that you've given previously in terms that the landlord could claim, but the smaller businesses who operate under that bigger umbrella are outside of scope?
Yeah, exactly the same. It's those small businesses would not be able to apply because they're not the ratepayers. The landlord, we would have to look at the nature of the landlord's business. You know, is it retail, hospitality and leisure? If so, then the landlord could apply and get it. Okay.
I think a follow-up to the answer to the question that you gave just before there, in terms of per shop, can this be done on a one application for a number of shops, or is it one application per shop?
Well, certainly within Boston, it's one application per property, and we will have written out separate letters to the ratepayers of each property that we think might be eligible. And so we would encourage them to go online and claim for each property concerned using the unique property reference number from their business rate bill.
The other areas, is that the same? Can I just ask there?
Yes, certainly in Lincoln, under the retail scheme, it is one application per property, but state aid obviously applies to that. So if there are a number of grants, then obviously the applicant, the ratepayer, would need to be conscious of the state aid limit.
Okay. Anything different from East Lindsey, or just the same?
It's just the same.
Thank you. Thanks. Got a couple of questions that are focusing on the 11th of March date. Now, 11th of March seems to be the date by which, if you're not on the system by that date, then you're not able to claim back the £10,000 or claim the £10,000. I had a number of questions in where tenants have actually been in property before that date. They have either told their landlord or the landlord has said that they will be qualifying for small business rate relief, or that they would sort that out for them. But when they've come to try to claim, that application for small business rate relief wasn't on the system as at that date. Now, the tenants have been in those buildings or in those offices, in some cases well before that. I've got an example here back to August 2018. They've just got backdated business rate requests, invoices, but they're not able to apply for the small business rates, the small business grant. Now, they're saying that that's a bit iniquitous, as actually they've got the liability. They can prove that they were in there at that particular time, but they haven't been able to get hold of the grant. Any help, advice, support that you guys can give in terms of that position? And I'm sure there are two sides to that, but what would be the official line?
Well, I'm not going to give help or support. I'm just going to give advice, and I have to say that ratepayer or that tenant should be asking themselves why they didn't follow up with their local authority and seek out their business rate liability direct. it is not a landlord's responsibility to sort out a tenant's business rate liability. The occupier of premises is liable for the rates. And in my role, a big part of my work is to go and seek out people that are not coming forward to tell us that they should be liable for the rates. And it's amazing to think that now these grants have come out, just how many ratepayers are contacting us to tell us how long they've been in property. Now, the government have deliberately put this stipulation in that at the 11th of March, if you're not on the rating list, you cannot get the grant. There are some limited exceptions where the council can see that their records were not up to date. So if for example, we had a backlog of changes of occupation that we were working through that had come in before the 11th of March, but because of our annual billing operation, we hadn't processed them, clearly that would be inequitable to the ratepayer to not give them the grant. Or if we know that we've asked the valuation office to change a rating assessment to split it up into separate units, for example, and the valuation office still haven't processed that, but we submitted a report before the 11th of March, then in that situation, we have the discretion to be flexible and to award the grant. Similarly, if the assessments are going the other way, we have the discretion to actually not award the grant if on the 11th of March our records were out of date, and to pay it would be inequitable because the person named should not have been named and we simply haven't got our records up to date. So either way, the council have discretion to pay or not to pay. But I mean, all I would say to the businesses that feel that they're being unjustly treated is if they come forward to the council and explain why it is that they haven't approached us direct in the past to seek out their business rates liability, we can only consider that case on its merits. But unless the council could have known that the records were out of date, then we're not obliged, and indeed we're not expected to pay the grants. I know that seems harsh, but that's the reality.
And not wanting to try and pick holes in that argument at all, but is there any different position in East Lindsey or Lincoln that we need to take account of there? You all are looking at the same set of instructions, but I just asked a question in case there's any other bits that they want.
Fair point.
No, that's the same approach that we're taking in Lincoln, that it is the ratepayer as of the 11th of March. And just as Andy has described, really, you know, if our records were inaccurate or we had reason to believe that they were inaccurate at this date, then we will look at that on a case-by-case basis. But discretion that we use is absolutely in exceptional circumstances. So, you know, the test is there really, if they were the ratepayer on that particular date on the 11th of March, if they come forward after that date, then really the view is that they're not eligible for the grant unless there are other circumstances, and the onus would then be on the applicant to provide the evidence of that if it wasn't a sort of system sort of error on our part, which obviously we would look into.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that one. Just encourage, if you've got any more questions, we're at 2:39 at the moment, so we are just sort of pushing on time in terms of where we're coming to at this stage. So if you've got any questions, please either put them on the chat or raise your hand at this stage. If there are no more, we'll be closing at 2:45. I do have a few more that I've been sent in earlier, so I'll go back to those if that's okay for now. We've had some comments in about forms and not necessarily being able to find addresses, eligible addresses, on your website systems easily when people log on. If you can't find your address, if there is an issue, what do you do? What's the next step if you can't find the address where you believe that everything should be registered to?
So I'll just come in from City of Lincoln. If you can't find your address, it may well be that you're not eligible for a grant, because our system is populated with those addresses that are eligible to receive a grant. However, if you, on reading the guidance, you still believe that you are eligible for a grant and you're having trouble with the form, then we would advise applicants to email us at the email address that's on our website, supportingbusiness@lincoln.gov.uk, and please attach a copy of your rates bill, and that will give us the information that we need to be able to verify with our system as to whether you are eligible for the grant or not.
I'm presuming that's similar for you other guys as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure that our forms are pre-populated with addresses. I imagine that people just enter their addresses from their rates bill, so it shouldn't be a restriction for them.
Okay, so just going back to the chat questions, would an estate agency or other professional service business be eligible to claim a grant if they do not qualify for business rate relief? So maybe that's a little bit wider in terms of the grants that are available. So would they be considered, I suppose for a start, would they be considered under the retail scheme?
Am I right in thinking that the retail scheme was extended to include estate agents? I'm just...
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So so they should now qualify. They didn't originally.
Okay. So other professional services, to show my lack of knowledge, are they included at this stage, or is it just estate agents?
It particularly referenced estate and letting agents.
If you're in, James referred to that question. It looks like that's a possibility. Not quite sure which area you're in, but that looks a positive statement from your question there. One of the last questions from me, as a charity and an SME, when will funding open for us? We seem to have been forgotten. We still have overheads and staff to pay. So is there any likelihood that charities will be able to gain funding under either of those two areas?
Yeah, I mean, charities are included in the retail, hospitality and leisure. I don't know whether any of the charities would qualify for small business rate relief or rural rate relief, but if they meet the qualifying conditions, certainly for retail, hospitality and leisure, they are named in the guidance and they can apply.
If it's a charity and they're receiving charitable relief, does that preclude them from the small business rates relief? Is that one and the same, or are they separate things?
No, in terms of the balance of the rates bill, that would still be eligible for the extended retail discount, and they would still be able to apply for the grant. Okay,
and if they weren't necessarily a retail charity, if there was a charity in an office, as an example, that was getting 80% of their rates rebate back, that they would still qualify for one of the current grants, would they?
I might look to Lydia for that, but I was thinking that they would, if they get mandatory charitable relief, they're not eligible for small business rate relief. Is that right, Lydia? I think, Lydia, you've got your mute on.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, yeah.
Sorry, I was busy responding to some of the inquiries down the group chat. Your question was in relation to the charitable status.
Yeah. Am I right in thinking that if you're getting the mandatory charitable relief, that stops you getting small business rate relief?
I would have to check that. I've not.
Yeah. Yeah. Off the top of my head, I stand to be corrected, but I think that when it comes to small business rate relief, I don't think charities can apply for that. I think they have to apply for charitable relief at 80%. But when it comes to the retail, hospitality and leisure, they're not included from those grants, provided they meet the rateable value criteria. But for the small business grant, you have to be getting small business rate relief. And I believe that charities generally do not get small business rate relief.
Okay, that's fine. If that's any different, we can come back. Well, after this session, we'll be providing some information out to all those that have participated on the call. So if we've got any further clarity, we can pick it up from there.
Sorry, Simon, I've just come. Sorry, Simon, just coming in a bit late on that whilst I'm rooting through, because we have had some latest FAQs through from the government. So I can just read out in relation to charities, that charities receiving charitable rate relief can't be eligible for small business rate relief or rural rate relief, and therefore cannot be eligible under the Small Business Grants Fund. They may be eligible under the Retail, Leisure and Hospitality Grants Fund. So that is in the latest guidance that we've received yesterday from government.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was saying. That's good.
Yeah, so that yeah, you're right.
Okay.
Thank goodness for that.
Thank you, Joe, for that. Diana, you've raised a question, but I wonder if you can just pose the question directly to the guys. I'm going to try and unmute you. Diana Catton, are you there?
Hello, yes, I am. I've stayed on mute because there's a noise in the background. Can you hear me?
We can.
I can, Diana.
Okay. I have actually filled in the form on the NKDC website, and I've been in contact with somebody there. But I've never had an invoice with regards to the rates, even though they're included in my rental agreement and my rent.
Diana, if you're not the ratepayer yourself, you will not be able to get the grant.
Yes, but I did have to fill in a form when I took on the office for them to send to to NKDC, I presume, for the small business rate relief.
Well, if you can only get small business rate relief if you're the ratepayer, and if you're the occupier of a separately rated office, then you would be the ratepayer of that office. You'd get the small business rate relief, and you'll get the grant.
Yes, I should do, but I've not got any formal invoices for it.
Yeah, I'm just trying to establish that you are actually the ratepayer and you're in the council.
As far as I know, I am, yes.
In which case, the council will be able to give you the grant even if you can't quote the property number. They'll be able to find it from their records, from your address.
Yes.
Not having your invoice number or your property number to hand, that in itself won't preclude you. When I saw your question, you said your landlord has not passed over the rates invoice. It worried me that your landlord was the ratepayer.
Well, this is what I'm thinking, that perhaps they are. And they've just apportioned out the rates to all the people in the managed office buildings.
Well, if it's a managed office, the chances are the landlord is the ratepayer, that you are not getting small business rate relief and you will not get the grant.
Well, apparently I am getting it. I've just not got any proof of it.
Well, the council will know who they've got as the ratepayer, and if you apply to them for the grant, they will be able to give you the payment. Which council do you come under, Diane?
North Kesteven.
Yeah, just get in touch with North Kesteven, verify that they have you on their records as the ratepayer. You've already sent your form in. They'll be able to link that to your account and pay you the grant, I'm certain.
I hope so, because business has really dropped through the floor.
I know. But if you've got, if the council say to you that the landlord is the ratepayer because your office is not separately rated, but perhaps the whole building is rated as one, then I'm afraid you will not be eligible. And the government are very clear that this support is for ratepayers, not for businesses who aren't ratepayers.
Yeah.
Okay,
no, it states clearly in my licence agreement that the rates are included in the rent.
No, that's not the same thing, Diana.
Yeah, no. It's what I'm trying to establish, really.
Yeah, let me just say, if your rates are included in your rent, you are not the ratepayer. You are a tenant who pays an inclusive rent, a rent inclusive of rates. Your landlord would be the ratepayer, and so you are not entitled to apply for the grant.
Okay. Well, we'll carry on trying to find out, because I know I filled in a form when I took on the office, which was
check with North Kesteven. I mean, we do have some situations, just very quickly, if I could say, where managed offices are being split into separate rating assessments. Now, it could be that your council are waiting for the valuation office to split your offices up so that you get your own rates bill. And that would be one of the exceptions to the 11th of March rule that we talked about earlier, where if we do that before the 11th of March, but we've not been able to bill you because we're waiting for the valuation office to come back with a split assessment, we can use our discretion And then when that split comes back and you become the ratepayer retrospectively, prior to the 11th of March, we will then be able to give you the grant.
Okay. Oh, thanks.
But
I think just wait to hear.
Yeah, you're in a very unique situation, and the best thing to do is to contact Northcare Stephen and get the advice direct from them, because they'll have the records to hand.
Well, it's quite a big business park. I would have thought that it would be, you know, established already what exactly happens. So,
yeah. Okay. Talk to them and see what you can find out.
Okay. Thank you.
All the best.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you for putting those questions across. We are coming really towards the end at the moment, so 2:53 at the moment. I'm just going to give the floor open to colleagues from district authorities if there's anything that they want to round up or finish with there. Any further comments? If not, I will wrap up. But just an opportunity for you to say anything at this stage. I
have one question, if I may.
That's not fair. You were answering the questions, not.
Okay, well, just one comment then, not a question. One of our biggest problems, Simon, one of the things that is slowing us down more than anything is businesses constantly ringing us up, asking us when they're going to get their grant payment. Now, while we're taking those calls on limited resources because of lockdown, that is stopping us from paying people more promptly. So what we're saying to everyone is that we expect to have the payments out the door by the end of April. Please do not chase your application before that date. If the money is not in your bank at the end of April, then by all means get in touch and find out what's happening with your application.
Okay, so I think in return for that, what we can do is spread that message to our membership and the wider comms that we put out in terms of that expectation. In terms of anybody else, just like to say anything before I wrap up?
I would just echo Andy's comments there from City of Lincoln, that if at all possible, appreciating how desperate the situation is for some, that if at all possible, if you could not chase your application if you have already made one, and certainly please don't submit a second application to us, because that doesn't help in terms of processing as quickly as we can. And just to reassure all those who have applied that we will be in touch with you either at the time of payment or if we have any queries, or to let you know that you're not eligible. Please rest assured that we will get to you, but it will just help us to act as quickly as possible if you can not sort of chase where at all possible just at this point.
Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you all for those questions. I hope you found it really interesting in terms of the spread of questions that we've got, and hopefully the honest and straightforward replies you've been given from colleagues. Sorry, Lydia.
Yes, just I've noticed a few businesses have sent me individual questions, and there's a few businesses I recognise in East Lindsey. We're still needing to reach out to around 2,000 businesses that have not been in touch with us. So please, my ask of all you, can you please share with any colleagues or other fellow businesses that you think are eligible, and get them to contact us via our website on our online form, because this money is there for them. So please share that information from the Chamber website, the Business Lincolnshire, and our individual district councils.
Okay, that's great. Thank you once again for that. Thank you just for adding to that. For those watching, just to make you aware that we've got some more ChamberConnect series webinars coming up, one of which takes place tomorrow at 2 o'clock. That will focus on well-being of remote workers. Next week, we have got 2 more sessions: how to adapt your PR and comms strategy during coronavirus, and also one on growing your networks through LinkedIn. So if you've been on today's call, you'll receive information of those, but keep looking out, whether it be on our LinkedIn profile or via the other comms that we'll send out to you in terms of those coming up. Events are on our website, links-chamber.co.uk/events. If you've got any more ideas of the sort of things that we should be doing, or other titles that you think we should be focusing on, events@links-chamber.co.uk is the email address to send things to there. If we haven't covered any questions, once again, please use that inbox and we'll forward them on, events@links-chamber.co.uk. I'd like to say thank you to Andy, to Claire, to Joe, and to Lydia. Hopefully I've mentioned you all there. Very much appreciate your time. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon, and we hope you have a very productive afternoon. Thank you.